Warning. This episode of the Noise Pollution Podcast contains content that some listeners may find disturbing. Any locations, names, or persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. This is intended for a mature audience only. Listener discretion advised. You've been warned.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another episode of the Noise Pollution Podcast. I'm your host, Blake. Guys, I really don't know how else to go about doing this episode, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it. As crazy as it sounds, and please just bear with me for this episode because what I discovered in my most recent research and self-discovery and finding, I uncovered some pretty crazy things. And I can guarantee you that this is the first place you're ever going to hear about this. This information I'm about to put out tonight is information that no one else has heard of or have done research on. I 100% guarantee that. So what I ask for this episode of the podcast, guys, please share the content of this episode and the Noise Pollution Podcast as much as possible. Please share it on your social media pages, on Facebook, your Twitters, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere else. Because the message that I'm going to be putting out tonight is extremely crucial. And it could be taken down, honestly. This episode could be taken down. And I'll just ask that you keep an open mind and bear with me here, okay? But real quick before I dump in, so if you're new here and First of all, I just want to say welcome. This is an interesting episode to join on. I'll say it at that. However, as you guys know, that the Noise Pollution Podcast is not off limits to anything. It's a podcast where we talk about anything and everything with an open mind. And remember, perspective is key, always. But before we get started into diving into what I have uncovered, I just want to go ahead and throw all of the social media stuff out right now, real quick, front and center for you guys. So you guys hear it. You guys can follow up on social media. And to make sure that I'm still up and operational as the Noise Pollution Podcast as a whole, and to be able to share the content with your friends, family, coworkers, and whoever else. So guys, just launched the YouTube page, okay? I'm starting to publish episodes on there. So if YouTube is a preferred platform of choice when listening to podcasts, or if you just prefer YouTube for its ease, go ahead, hop on there. Just go on YouTube and search for Noise Pollution Podcast. It'll come up. You'll see the familiar logo that you see all over the place. Yeah, so guys, if you could subscribe there, turn the little notification bell button on there so you guys get notified every time a new episode gets published to YouTube. I would greatly appreciate that. I'm also on Facebook. You can check that out. Go to facebook.com/Noise Pollution Podcast. There's a like page and a closed group. If you could like and share that as well, join the group as well. I'd really appreciate that. It's a growing group of like-minded individuals. I'm also on Instagram at Noise Pollution Podcast. I'm also on Twitter at Pollution Radio. And if you want to reach out to me for whatever reason, post this episode to get some more information, feel free to email me as well. That email is noisepollutiontalks@gmail.com. Okay. All right. I've said my piece with the where to follow me and all that nonsense. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and just start diving into it, guys. So I hope this doesn't get taken down. I had a feeling it might. I don't know, but fuck it. We're doing it. Okay, so if you love listening to a wide variety of podcasts, as I do, you'll have no doubt that you may have noticed many weird anomalies. And I feel that many people already have a strong feeling that something strange and maybe perhaps nefarious has been happening in the podcasting world, in the universe. But no one to date has been able to put all of the puzzle pieces together. And you may be asking yourself questions such as, why are the best and most authentic podcasts not be way more popular? You know, podcasts like Baked and Awake and There Might Be Cupcakes. How come so many amazing podcasts just seem to vanish out of thin air? How are the most popular podcasts still on top when pretty much everyone else agrees that they're long past their prime and are now just regurgitating the same old material over and over? Honestly, I mean, what more could Joe Rogan possibly have to say about smoking weed and sitting on the fence on every other topic, really? Why doesn't Apple help push podcasts to make them more mainstream and make their podcast application actually usable? Well, after months and months, a lot of time, over hundreds of hours of personal investigation, including to talking to many anonymous sources, I believe I have worked out enough to start to blow this whole thing wide the fuck open. Now, I don't have the full picture yet, but bear with me. But what I've got will absolutely shock you to the core and make you really question everything you think you know about podcasts. Now, the Cabal will no doubt try to defame me and silence me once this is released. So again, please share this episode with everyone you know and re-release it on your own podcast or YouTube channel, blog, whatever you got. Just please share the information, get it out there. Use BitChute and Gab and Minds and the dark web and every platform there is so that the tech giants can't completely delete me as they have done for so many others. If you're listening to this, you are a part of the resistance against the podcast cabal. And together, if we keep fighting, we can expose them and evolve podcasting into the wonderful thing it really should be. Free from tyranny of those who are corrupted with power and so arrogant that they believe themselves to be untouchable. And the rest of us are fools who are and have been so easily played. And no, we're not fools. And no one is completely untouchable, no matter how rich and powerful. Now, this cabal I'm speaking of has already been trying to destroy my podcast using their remote PsyOps technology and actually almost succeeded until I woke up to the voices in my head and worked out exactly what the fuck was really going on. I'm not crazy or delusional here, guys, and I must get my message out there. Many of you may already have suspected that what I'm about to lay out might be true, but don't yet have sufficient evidence to go public because these people are so masterful at covering their tracks and suppressing all of the opposition. Yes, you heard it right, guys. There is a cabal of top podcasters actively suppressing all the other more entertaining podcasts and they do whatever it takes to keep themselves at the top. And they also have the backing of the globalist elite who own all of these platforms. They have been and will continue to monitor this episode, and no doubt their first attack will try to discredit me. They will find something I've said, they'll distort it, and use their own channels to demonetize me first in a joking way, and then they will up the ante as required until I'm a satanic baby murderer or something even worse than that. But please, guys, don't let them fool you. They are not invincible. We can do this if we work together to counter their suppression and expose it to the public who are subconsciously growing tired of their inferior content and want something new and exciting and actually life-changing. Podcasts that enhance our lives that really, truly matter. So let me walk you through my own personal investigation so far so you can judge the evidence for yourself. The truth will set us free. Please share your stories on my social media if you have had any similar experiences so we can keep picking away at their facade to expose the rotten core within. This cabal cannot last forever. A podcast revolution is coming, baby. I have evidence that top podcasters pay underground podcasters to attack other podcasters and keep the underground community occupied fighting petty battles instead of finding the audiences they deserve. I have personally seen a lot of this myself. ManBrain is one of those podcasts who seeks out all of the underground podcasting cliques and creates pure mayhem. ManBrain can barely even be classified as a podcast and would have long ago been expunged were it not for their powerful backers who can suppress valid reporting against them or overturn and reinstate any content that is temporarily banned. This happened with their humiliation fetish spanking video that absolutely does not belong on YouTube, but it was rightly banned then within days. It was reinstated to continue to corrupt the minds. Now, I have carefully analyzed the audio, and it actually also contains subliminal messaging to only listen to the top 10 podcasts and that all other podcasts are garbage. The existence of ManBrain podcast makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Unless they're just shills paid to discredit all underground podcasts and divide and conquer the community. Look, just go listen to it if you don't believe me. Nothing but hate speech, filled with dehumanizing rants and jokes that aren't funny, they're just offensive. I've leaked documents already detailing the hundreds of times it has been rightly reported, but no further actions were taken. The man who calls himself Dave Chaffee Hippie claims to single-handedly create ManBrain podcast and has, to date, destroyed many, many other podcasts. I have actual proof evidence of 152 podcasts that he has personally taken down, but no doubt there's probably many more. And, he is likely only one of so many shills out there that are being paid off by the cabal. So, you can begin to see the magnitude of disservice that this cabal is committing on the unknowing public. Unless something changes, they will never get to hear the greatest podcast of all time. Amazing podcast that can actually help bring about a new age of peace and prosperity for all humanity. As an example, Mr. Chaffee Hippie took down Everything But Politics and Religion podcast. He somehow was able to get them removed from the 2 Pods a Day podcast promotional campaign, and then he and his overlords used psychological manipulation to tear the 2 co-hosts apart. I have reason to believe he has been trying to do this to me also. Behind this so-called jokes and ManBrain bonus episode 14, there was a really strong personal threat against me, guys. He made this episode for no other reason than a psyop against my podcast. All his episodes do is seek and destroy many podcasts, and I couldn't possibly list them all here, so go and listen to all the episodes of ManBrain podcast if you seriously don't believe me. Now, I have yet to completely expose all of this podcast cabal, and I will need a lot of help to complete my mission. But I know for certain that Joe Rogan is one of the leaders. There is no other explanation for his mind-controlled zombie fanboys and his boring, far too long podcast. With just one phone call, he managed to shut up the renegade Owen Benjamin and get him to destroy his own reputation with an apology video. This is how powerful these guys are, guys. In a most recent episode, Elon Musk looked at Joe the wrong way, and then all of a sudden, Tesla stock prices plunged by 10%. These are powerful forces we're dealing with here, so please be warned. But this is the most important fight of our lives. We believe in podcasting, even if it means to sacrifice everything. So yes, the evidence I laid out so far is damning, but I'm afraid it gets worse. Seriously, much worse. I have a source who is adamant that Dave Chaffee Hippie, the supposed leader of Man Brain Podcast, does not even exist. He may as well be a pure invention by the cabal, designed to tear the whole entire underground podcasting community apart. But I have yet to confirm or deny this, but how else could you really explain the reach and power of the this podcast that makes little to no sense? A podcast created by one guy from Australia. That can't be possible, really. He claims that he used to be a senior structural engineer who had leadership roles on billion-dollar port projects. But just listen to his show, guys. There's absolutely no way this guy used to be a professional. It's completely impossible. This guy, even if he exists, he can't even do basic math. The hate speech that pours from his mouth would never, ever have been tolerated in a professional environment. This seems to be a massive joke to the cabal that everyone believes he's a real guy. Now just listen to any of his episodes and you'll agree that it doesn't really add up. This is how dumb the cabal think you are, but you're smart, and together we can rise up. You might as well ask yourself, why are the Apple and tech giants letting it happen? It will not be a good look for them when we expose it all, hopefully very soon, when we can get all of our ducks in a row. Well, you see, it really serves their interest to keep the old media giants and their big advertisers from the old world happy. The river of gold is slowly drying up, so to speak, from an artistic content, but they'll hold on for as long as they can. Now, the cabal have their relatively small empire that is not a threat, and the tech giants are keeping these worlds separate to not upset the apple cart. So if you're a podcaster who does not have the backing of the cabal, you have absolutely zero chance of breaking through and finding your full audience. None. Zero. And it will stay that way unless we fight them and take them down. The cabal have many ways of flagrant cheating that any moral podcaster wouldn't even dream of doing, such as using Bangladeshi podcast hackers to stay on top of the charts and prevent anyone else from beating them with better content. Manbraid Podcast has even joked that they get this hacking done for free. That's how arrogant they all are. And they think that the rest of us are just too dumb to notice. Well, no sir. We are so much smarter than you think and are growing more and more knowledgeable every goddamn day. And we will not let these injustices fucking continue. If you think all of this is horrifying, but at least no one is getting killed, where there was a guy called Scott Smithers who had one of the best podcasts around and was rising in popularity. But being a skeptic and an atheist, he was immune to the usual psyop and suppression tactics used. And what did they do to him? Murder-suicide with no more questions asked by the authorities. There are people who are too scared to testify on what they actually saw that day, and they also have been threatened into silence. I managed to contact one of the witnesses, and they forcefully told me to stop what I was doing, and that these people, they don't fuck around. They adamantly denied that Scott and his wife were murdered by Cabal agents, but I could hear the fear in their voice, and it was really obvious that the opposite is really true. They can try, but I will not be intimidated. I will do whatever it takes and work tirelessly to get this case reopened and convince the witnesses to come forward. But guys, I really need your help. We outnumbered them by the thousands to 1. Only if we work together, they do not stand a chance. So you're probably thinking to yourself at this point, holy shit, this is all simply despicable. What the fuck can I do? I want to help? Well, there's so much more to do, but let's start by targeting one of the small fish, and then we'll work our way up to the top. So go and tell everyone you know about Man Brain Podcast. We can't yet take down the likes of Rogan and the Cabal overlords, so first we will rid the podcasting world of all of the underground malevolent agents, starting with Man Brain Podcast. I need all of you to report Man Brain Podcast on every single platform they are on for hate speech and copyright violations. Let's get them taken down before they go after and destroy your favorite underground podcasts like Baked and Awake and On the Edge with Mike Peacock, and There Might Be Cupcakes. And if you're a podcaster, maybe you'll be next. So there is no excuse to not report often and forcefully. Yes, Man Brain Podcast is clearly being protected, but if they can get enough complaints, they'll have to do something. The public will demand it. So start with SoundCloud, where they host at. They clearly breach their rules. So report them and post on social media that SoundCloud must act to comply with their own rules. Get Man Brain taken down from SoundCloud, and the whole house of cards starts to fall. But also report on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vero, Pornhub, YouTube, Snapchat, Squarespace, WordPress, Tumblr, Pinterest, MailChimp, Reddit, and wherever else you can find Man Brain Podcast. And as long as they stay on iTunes, please flood them with 1-star reviews. Whoever is behind Man Brain Podcast is a malevolent force and must be taken down. Now, in future episodes, I will instruct on which other Shield podcast to go after and to get that needs taken down. And we shall continue our fights all the way to the top of the podcast cabal. Guys, thank you so much for listening. And if you have any evidence or experiences that can help with this fight, please get in contact with me and keep at it on future episodes, guys. A much brighter future is coming. We can all work together to make podcasting what it should be. Viva la Podcasting Revolution!
Man Brain. You know you want it. You know you need it. Let me introduce you to our team of audio professionals, 100% committed to giving you the greatest extreme comedy podcast of all time.
What's SPH? I'm so super cute.
Send me your orgasmic release videos.
You can get it rootin'. You can get it tootin'. You can get it doing doughies in your yeet. Mi nombre es Tío Yeti. And you just laugh at little Hank. I ain't gonna pretend I is fresh. It looks like you might like that.
And most importantly, I'm Skullfucker. Rah! Go to manbrainpodcast.com to get orally violated. Manbrain out.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So listen, full disclosure here. This episode was made in partnership with Dave Chaffee Hippie from Man Brain Podcast. So all the content in this episode, yeah, it was a satirical episode. Sorry, not sorry. So if you're into some serious raw comedy podcast, go check them out. Tell them Blake from the Noise Pollution Podcast sent you. You're welcome. Enjoy. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Blake. This is the Noise Pollution Podcast. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.